Do any of your patients know that you were a mermaid?
They do. They do. That's a very fun fact to tell them.
Welcome to the Elmore Leonard podcast. This is Judd Rubin. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. So one of the things that's really great about Elmore's writing is how evocative he can be in just a few words. In just a short phrase, he can redefine the world we've been reading about or just add a small detail that just opens it up. But there's not always enough time in the book to explore what he's referring to. And so we wanted to talk to a couple of people who each have their own unique connection to Elmore and the work. The first is Kristy Lowman. For 7 years, Kristy was a Weeki Wachee mermaid. If you've read Maximum Bob, Tishomingo Blues, or some of the other books set in Florida, you probably recognize the reference to Weeki Wachee and the mermaids. And like me, we're probably wondering, what is this all about? So we're going to talk to Kristy about what it's like behind the curtain, under the water, to be an actual Weeki Wachee mermaid. We're also going to talk to Bill Leonard. Bill is one of Elmore's 5 kids, and he is going to share some memories of driving down to Florida from Michigan in the spring on their annual Easter vacation. Elmore, if you've read the biography, My C.M. Cushion's Cooler Than Cool, you'll have read about how Elmore had bought a motel for his mom to run and live in and retire to. And it seems clear to me that the time Elmore spent in Florida at his mom's motel really introduced him to a whole new world and gave us books like Gold Coast, Split Images, which we just talked about, La Brava, Maximum Bob, Out of Sight, Rum Punch. So many great books are set in Florida, as well as Detroit, obviously. So it was a thrill to get to talk to them both. We hope you get a kick out of these conversations. We're going to talk to Kristy, then we're going to talk to Bill. Please enjoy. So I'm thrilled to get to talk to an actual Weeki Wachee mermaid today. Kristy, welcome to the Elmore Leonard podcast. This is a thrill for all of us, and I'm really glad to get to ask you some very important questions that a lot of us fans of Elmore have been wondering about for years and years. So welcome. Thank you for being here. My first question for you is, do you have a favorite food or drink that you enjoy consuming underwater?
I was going to say, is it a real food or a drink or something I could do underwater? So, actually, in one of our shows that we used to have, which was called Fish Tales, they don't perform it anymore. Uh,
Oh
but
no.
but I know, but Fish Tales, we used to eat and drink underwater. So I'll tell you what I'm able to eat and drink underwater. We would put like a fruit punch packet in a glass Coke bottle. And that's what we would drink during the show. I've drank other things underwater as well, just for fun. But during the show, we would do the little fruit punch, or like the crystal water packets. We would drink that, and then an apple. We would actually eat an apple, take a couple of bites out of the apple underwater in the show. Fun fact about that is when you would sneeze or anything after the show, it would usually come through your nose because you probably
Oh,
didn't
good.
get it down properly. So yeah, that's about all I've eaten underwater would be an apple.
Okay, so how does one become a mermaid?
So, if you grew up where we're from, there's a few towns around Weeki Wachee, and you typically know about Weeki Wachee. Some people growing up they host like mermaid camps every summer where they actually have like little girls. The mermaids will actually have like ages like 5 to 10, we'll say. They come out for a week and come every day and get to pretend to be mermaids. So there was a few people that actually did those camps as a child, and then
Yeah.
dreamt of becoming a mermaid. For me particularly, I just knew someone that was doing it, and she's like, "You should come do it. It's super fun. Come try out." So I did, and you go and you perform a swim test. I can't
All right.
remember the actual yards, but you have to swim. There's slides at Buccaneer Bay. That's also a part of Weeki Wachee. You would swim like a 200-yard swim laps, and they would time you, and you had to do it under a certain amount of time. and then you had to smile and wave underwater while somebody watched you from the window. So I guess they have to make sure that you look comfortable under the water. And then we had to try and do what's called a dolphin, which would be like a flip underwater. Again, just to see like, can this girl exhale through her nose, or how she look comfortability wise. They know you're not going to do it perfectly. They just want to see if you're moldable. Um, and then of course your regular interview like for any other job. So it's very intimidating when you go and do those things, but I guess I must have done okay all those years ago.
When were you doing this, and how long did you do it for?
I did it for about 7 years. I did it through nursing school. So I did it right after high school. So I was about 18 and I did it, gosh, it must have been like 24 or 25 once I actually left because I went to nursing school during that time.
Do any of your patients know that you were a mermaid?
They do. They do. That's a very fun fact to tell them. So I actually do home health care. So I actually am
Oh, wow.
going into people's homes. Even if I don't tell them, one of the other therapists or nurses that do see the patient will tell them. And then next time I
Oh, that's
see
great.
them, they're like, oh, we heard you were a mermaid. And there was actually just statues put all around Hernando County, which is where we're at. And there was big, like 6 foot tall mermaid statues put all around the county, and they're actually a mold of my face. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we did a mold of my face a couple years ago. Like an artist came and did it, and then my face is on all of these statues.
That's wild.
Yes. So, with that being said, all my patients were hearing about this because it was on the news and all this stuff. So that was probably around the time
How does that come about? Like, you just get a call one day and it's like, Kristy, we're going to put up some statues. Can we borrow your face? Like, what happened?
Jonathan, who now works for Florida Adventure Coast, used to be our PR guy at Weeki
Got it.
Wachee.
Yeah.
So him and I were very close during the time that I was there. And he always dreamt of putting these mermaid statues like all over Hernando County. It just never happened while he was at Weeki Wachee, or nor was I. And he called me one day just to talk to me, basically what you said. He called me and asked or told me about the statues and that they wanted to do it, and they wanted it to be based off of like a photo of me. And then I was like, oh, that's so cool, blah, blah, blah. And then he called like later at a later date, a couple weeks later, and asked me if I would be comfortable with them actually molding my face. He's like, I answered the question for you and told them you were not claustrophobic, so I hope that's true.
Oh, my God.
So yeah, they actually did the molding. I looked, yeah, it was pretty wild. And then that went
Now,
on.
this is a impolite question. Did they pay you to use your
No,
face?
no, they didn't. No, I
Did you get a free statue?
I didn't even ask for that. I think because the experience of it was, but no, I did not get paid. I did not get a statue. Honestly, the experience and the opportunity, because now these are all around town, and I've done so much fun stuff since then. Even though I'm not a mermaid anymore, I don't still swim. I feel like I'm still getting to kind of live that like fun time.
Yeah.
So no, I did not ask for anything. It was really cool though. Like artists all around Hernando County painted each of the statues like very different.
Oh,
So
great.
it's a really cool thing. So no, I was excited, and I guess you'd say honored to be a part of it.
So, just backtrack real quick. So, you grew up in Hernando County, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, you grew up around the park and around the springs. Tell us a little bit about the park, because it's a state park, but there's also, I'm used to state parks that are okay, yeah, you can go hiking and maybe there's a waterfall or you can go camping, but tell us a little bit more just about the park in general, because this is pretty cool.
So it wasn't always a state park, which is why I think it's so different from the state parks that everybody is used to. I believe in 2008 it got bought out because it was going to shut down.
Oh, wow.
And then the state decided to buy it out. So that's why it's a state park, actually. And it's really cool. You go there. So we have Buccaneer Bay, which is the water park that's a part of it. And it's actually, you swim into the spring. There's like a beach area, there's slides. So that's a really cool area to be able to swim in this spring so comfortably without having to take your kayak or your boat somewhere. And then, of course, we have the Weeki Wachee side, so it's all the same park, but the Weeki Wachee side, which is all about the mermaids. You go and there's an animal show they talk about. They have birds that they show you and talk all about the animals. There's a boat ride that actually takes you around the spring and where people can actually kayak and stuff down the river. And then, of course, there's the mermaid show. So it's an underwater theater. So you walk down a ramp and think of like an aquarium. Truly think of an aquarium, but it's a natural spring and there's mermaid shows. So you go down into this underwater theater, and basically when the curtain rises and the show starts, there's mermaids and we're swimming in the natural spring.
Why mermaids? Is it because of they're cool? Because of Hans Christian Andersen? Because of manatees? But like, why mermaids?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. So it's been around, gosh, I think like 1942. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's because Hans Christian Andersen's, because that wasn't always performed. I think they used to, it was Dutton Perry who came up with the mermaid thing, and they actually, before they had tails, would like do ballet numbers and stuff.
Oh wow.
So that's a good question of why mermaids, but I guess just because it wasn't being done anywhere. And how cool is it to come watch mermaids in an underwater spring?
Is pretty great. Most of the people who are coming and watching the show, are they from Florida? Are they from all over the country? Because Hernando County it's on the Gulf side of the state, right? It's kind of closer to Tampa.
Yes, correct.
Is it tourists from within Florida or from the whole country, or like what's a typical, like you're doing a show, like most of the crowd is, who are these people?
I would say from all over. Yeah, I would say definitely from all over. They're open, 365 days a year. So it's
Oh my gosh.
people from everywhere. Even like Christmas, you come and there's people from like Europe coming, and that's their Christmas gift, to their children or whatever it may be. Yeah, so I would definitely say all over, because we would hear so much of how far people would travel, because most of the time it's either just something people have heard of for a long time that they wanted to see. A lot of times it's, of course, little girls that love mermaids. And then again, how fun is that for them to get to come and actually see live mermaids? And then they have somebody that poses after and takes a photo with the kids. So, yeah, definitely all over, everywhere they come.
And what is a typical day like? As so you did this for several years. Yeah, what's a typical day? Is it you do one show a day? You do 10 shows a
So
day?
it's not as I guess you'd say magical as a lot of people think. How fun. Oh, you get to go swim. I mean, let's talk about, of course, during the winter when it's freezing outside, and the
Yeah.
spring, yeah, it's 74 degrees, but it's still freezing to you. So yeah, you go in, and it would usually be 9 to 4 would be your hours.
Okay.
You'd get there at 9, and typically there would be either you're doing a training session, so training mermaids, new mermaids, as you'd say, which were called trainees. They would get in the water, and I'm talking on a microphone and watching them and training them through the numbers of the show while they're learning it. You'd get out, and then you'd put your makeup on, because mermaids wear a lot of makeup. A lot of
Okay.
makeup underwater. So you'd get ready. So, they're in a locker room. So it's all you and all your friends, basically, because
Yeah.
that's what it becomes. You
Sure.
all are getting ready for the show. So some people would go down to host the show. So the theater opened 30 minutes before the show starts. So you'd be greeting the guests coming in. And then if you're swimming the show, you basically 10 minutes before down, you would go into a room. We used to have a tube room that we would actually go down through a tube
Oh my God.
that shot out into the spring, but that changed years ago. So they just now go to,
Why?
I know, it was a safety issue. They came in and
For who?
said, I know, that's what I said. It was,
Did anyone
it
get
was,
injured?
no, 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 no. But we had a lot of state restrictions. So being a state park, there was a lot of things that changed, and restrictions with new people that came in that would,
Yeah.
it's a very different park. So it was different for them. They did not deem that as safe as the girls going through the tube.
Fair enough.
So you'd go down, you'd get ready to jump in. They'd play a song that's like the pre-show song. You'd jump in the freezing cold water and go down, and basically get ready, do the show. The shows are typically 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You either have, there was like 3 shows a day or 4 shows a day. 4 shows during summer, 3 shows the rest of the year. And then basically after the 30-minute show, you get out, you'd have lunch or whatever it may be, and then get ready for the next show. And you kind of just did that the 3 or 4 times a day. It was, you're either hosting for the show or swimming the show, or in the control booth, which would be talking to the girls in the
So
water.
you have an earpiece on when you're underwater?
No, it's just like speakers all around. So
Can the audience hear that
no,
or just
no, the
okay.
audience.
So
So
what are you saying over the
wouldn't you? So the audience, and then underwater, so the girls underwater and the audience would all hear, of course, the actual show itself. So the music and all of that. We would hear the speakers because you're singing. You know, you're having to perform to the show, and then the person in the control booth would have a microphone talking. So it'd be like we had a stage, and if I'm in the control booth and you drop your hose, hey Judd, your hose is right there, or river or gift shop, something like that. Or just silly, making the girls enjoy the show. We would just be silly in there, but it mainly safety reasons is why they had somebody
if
watching.
you're in the control booth and you're leading the train? So at this point you were like the chief mermaid in
There
charge.
is different, like I said, the trainee. So it goes trainee. That's how you start as a mermaid, and then like you learn a few parts of the show. You have to get scuba certified. You have to get comfortable in the water, and then you learn the parts of the show, so a few parts, and then you go to novice, which you have to take like a test. You have to, do swim as many windows, which is just swimming past the windows of the theater with no air hose or whatever it may be to become novice. And
Yeah.
then same thing once you become mermaid status,
Oh,
you actually have to make a choreographed number. You have to choreograph a number, you and another person do that. You have to make up a move underwater that no
oh,
one else has done. And then you have to do like a ballet combo. So once you get to mermaid status, that's like the highest you're going to get. And then, yes, once you're comfortable, you know the shows, you know the safety, then that's when you get to be in the control booth. So it wasn't always like the top mermaid. It was just as long as you were mermaid status.
how long does it typically take
Um,
to get full mermaid status?
about a year.
And then of the trainees, is it like the Navy SEALs, like where a bunch of people like they start and they just don't make it through?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
What's like what percentage?
Oh, gosh, very low. I'd say maybe 10% because it's a really low percentage. Typically, if you
Who do make it or don't make
don't
it?
make it, who don't make it, who leave. Like I would say, typically your person that unfortunately isn't gonna make it would be someone who doesn't realize. They think of it more as a fun, and it is very fun. Don't get me wrong; it's very very fun, but it is hard. It's hard. It's taxing. You get sinus infections all the time. Your body's tired. You're tired. You're in the water. I mean, it's hard. So I would say that, or they just don't get comfortable. If you're scuba diving and then it's you're using an air hose, so you have no goggles. You're having to exhale through your nose and again look comfortable. You don't want the audience thinking like, oh my gosh, this girl doesn't, she looks scared under there, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
So it's just yeah, exactly. So it's just the people that it's mainly not getting comfortable, that they just don't make
got
it
it.
through, and you can usually tell pretty quickly.
When you become an official mermaid, you get a badge.
Um, no, you don't get a badge, but you did get a raise. Like you would get a pay raise. So each
Okay.
like. No, I think it's just mermaid status. I want to say that you get a pay raise. So you would start at a certain rate and then get the raise once you became mermaid. So that's an incentive. When you're young, you're trying to, of course, make as much money as you can. So that's an incentive to push through
Sure.
that. And then you just get you have a little more seniority, and you get to train people, and you want to become mermaid status as quickly as you can when you start there, basically.
Have you ever gotten out of a traffic ticket because you were a mermaid?
Uh, Actually, no. And fun fact, I actually have gotten a ticket in my scrubs before, so that's even worse. No, I have not, but I didn't. I've never tried to use it. I probably should next time. Maybe I'll tell them I'm the face of the statue and see if it works.
Who is the best mermaid you've ever seen?
Oh. That's a good question. Ooh, the best mermaid I've ever seen. Yeah,
and
that's a good
why?
one. Um,
Present company excluded, of course.
hmm. I would say there was a mermaid Crystal when I worked
All
there.
right.
She actually trained me. She doesn't work there anymore. Of course, this was a long time ago, and she had been a mermaid for a long time when I started. She probably been there. My gosh, like 10 years. So that it's common.
Yeah.
And she was just wonderful, like the most graceful person I've ever seen in the water. Um, and well, on
Not on land?
and land too, but that doesn't matter when you're a mermaid. And just
No.
yeah, just I mean, when you watched her, it was like you were just watching pure grace underwater. I would say, yeah, Crystal. She was wonderful, and she was a great trainer. She explained things so well. I mean, she was the one. She was the mermaid that would be in the control booth, training you, and then
Oh,
would want to fix something, but then she would get into the water with you to be able to just show you one on one, because sometimes just the voice in the water wasn't enough. She would actually take the time to get in there. So not only was she graceful and beautiful underwater, she was just a good person, good trainer. So yeah, she would have been my favorite mermaid to watch for sure.
were there any rogue mermaids who basically nobody liked? They were mean. Everyone the park wanted to fire them, but once they got in the water, they were so good that it just all made up
Um,
for it.
I'm trying to think of someone specific, but there probably were some people that weren't favorites of the other mermaids.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, being a state park, you can't just fire someone. Do you know how hard it is to fire someone when you're a state park? So even if somebody was horrible, they weren't gonna get fired. Yeah. But no, I can't think of anyone specific.
Has anyone ever tried to jump in the
Oh,
tank?
yes. Yeah.
How
So
often does that
so
happen?
that it although it appears as a tank, like with the windows underneath the theater, it's not a separate tank or a separate area of swimming from Buccaneer Bay. So literally all that's separating Buccaneer Bay and where the mermaids perform is a rope and some buoys. So there's not like a underwater like wall or whatever you would imagine basically. So a lot of times people will try to just completely just swim over there, and of course the lifeguards or
Hmm.
whoever whistles at them. But I can think of two experiences, one in particular. We used to climb up a ladder, and there was a deck on the roof that we would jump off of as a part of the Little Mermaid show. So we have princes, of course, for the Little Mermaid. So the prince would jump off of this deck up from the roof. It's not as dramatic as it sounds, but it was mainly for the jump in effect. That I remember, it was the end of the day, so it must have been after 4 o'clock, after the last show, and two kids, like teenage boys, were climbing up that ladder. And I remember like I caught them, or I was there, and we're like, hey, like you can't do that. You guys have to
Hmm.
get down or whatever. And they did. Well, we all went about our business. Well, then come to find out, or like we walked out or saw it or whatever. They jumped in from up where the prince jumps in, and we had to like chase
Oh my
them
god.
down to get them in trouble because we were so mad. We're like so frustrated that they did that. And they got kicked out of the park. It was this whole dramatic thing. But yeah, actually, I mean, not like too often, at least not while I was there, but there was definitely a handful of times that people would try to do that. And it was usually like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, because most of the time the lifeguards or somebody was there to be able to stop it from happening.
I'm not sure if you have kids or not. I'm not sure if you have a daughter or not. But if you had a daughter, would you encourage her to become a mermaid?
So I do have kids. I have a little boy. If I had a daughter, yes and no. I wouldn't want my daughter to do it and not do anything else. I would encourage her to do it as long as there was something else, because it's not a career. It's something very fun that you do during the time. But yeah, depending on in the future how it is, I would probably encourage her to do it because I'll say when I was there, we went to different aquariums like all over and got to swim with sharks and sea turtles and all this cool stuff in
Oh wow.
aquariums. I mean, New Orleans, New Jersey, Kentucky, like we've gone all over. They
As
don't.
part of
Mm-hmm.
as part of being a
Wiki,
mermaid?
yes, as part of being a Weeki Wachee mermaid, yes. So they don't do that anymore. And I would have to
Why not?
say, the state, things have just changed. Yeah, and
Come on.
I know, they've done like a lot of restrictions and stuff. I'll say that was probably like the best part. That was so cool to get to experience that and see. And you're going with like you and three of like basically your best friends, and you're going to travel all over. They don't do that
Right.
anymore. There's a lot of things that they don't do anymore. And I feel like that made a big part of my experience as a mermaid.
So you go to work one day, someone comes down and says, "Oh, by the way, we're going on tour. We're going to an aquarium and you're going to swim with the shark." Like, how does that go down?
So basically it was like a normal thing when I was there that we would go and represent Weeki Wachee in these aquariums. So I think the first aquarium they ever did was Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta. And they swam in their dolphin tank. Not with the dolphins, but in the dolphin tank. So basically, like we said, the statuses, you typically don't get to do that unless if you're mermaid status. So I guess that's another thing to be an incentive. You get to go to these aquariums, you get paid extra money. You'd go for a week with three of your, best friends, and it
Oh my
just would
gosh.
be like the time of your life. And then the first time I had to go actually swim with sharks, I believe it was Charleston, South Carolina. And there was going to be sharks, sea turtles, all kinds of different fish in this tank. I was extremely excited, but also very nervous. Who wouldn't be when they're being told that? And I think the excitement is cool until you get there and you see shark fins like in the tank that you're about to jump into. So the spring, of course, we're used to the spring water, so fresh water. So you're going into the salt water. No goggles. You just have your tail and your top, just like you do at Weeki Wachee. And then you have a diver with you in scuba gear that goes down. That's like assigned to you, basically to, I guess, protect you. So I was very, very scared seeing the shark fins. Like I said, I think like full on anxiety, like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get in that tank. Um, I did it, of course, and it was scary like the first couple times you did it, but then it just became, it sounds crazy, but normal. You were like, oh, okay, yeah, just another tank with sharks in it. They don't bother you. They don't come near you. I mean, they do come near you, but it's not like you're actually think I'm about to get bit by a shark because they're used to people being in there all the time. As
Yeah,
far
but are they used to mermaids?
no, no. So that's the thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this shiny tail on, and there's going to be very attracted to it. I have gotten actually at the Charleston Aquarium. I did get bit by redfish, like big redfish. I remember the first time I think it bit my hand, and I was like,
Oh my
oh my
gosh.
gosh. So I like went to the surface like quickly and was like, I just got bit. And then it happened like three more times. Like it got me on my stomach, and then my whole hand went in the redfish's mouth.
Oh my.
And all I could think was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be bleeding or whatever, like thinking,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, these sharks are really going to come after me. And one of the times that I went to the surface, a shark right above me was grabbing onto a fish while I had
Oh
just gotten
wow.
bit by the redfish. So when I was surfacing, they like the people up top like panics, like get out, get out, get out. And like the audience saw me going up while the shark above me and the shark didn't do anything to me. It was of course nothing crazy. But yeah, very, very intimidating.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was very intense. And I didn't get back in that tank. I was very scared. And then I did not go back the next year. But then in New Orleans one time, it was a complete shark tank, just sharks. I was the first person to get into it because I was the most senior mermaid on the trip. So they put me in the tank. And again, you just have two divers, like that tank I had two for me, and they have poles that they're just like again like protecting me against the glass from these sharks. And in that tank, I got very nervous as well and asked to get out and did not get back in there. So I was usually not like a nervous Nelly, but after I got bit in Charleston, I was like, I'm freaked. Like, this is a little too much for me.
I don't even know
Uh,
what a redfish is. But if it's big enough to get its mouth around your hand, it's got to be pretty big. Does it have
he,
sharp teeth? Or
so that's what I was gonna say. Their teeth are like a sandpaper. So it's
okay,
like not like a shark tooth. It's more like it looked like I had like I got like a rug or like a road rash. That's what it looked like. The bites did. So it wasn't
still,
like it, drew all this blood. But it was like sandpaper teeth would be the best way to explain it.
still does not sound fun.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
How many sharks were in the tank in New Orleans?
Um, I, I mean, it was a very large tank. I mean, I don't probably 15, I'd say at least. I sound like a lunatic. Probably about
No,
15. Yeah, 15 sharks.
that's insane.
Yeah, that one was not my cup of tea. Definitely not.
And so they would send you as a way to basically advertise Weeki Wachee.
Yep, yep. Like, oh, we have the Weeki Wachee mermaids coming. It would be like all over, and then people would come all over, and we would just get in. We wouldn't like perform. I think a couple places we performed like actual performance, but typically we would just get in and we would be smiling and waving and taking pictures. It was a very big deal, but they don't do that anymore, so it's kind of sad.
That's too bad. Was there an
Yeah.
exchange? Like you would go to the shark tank and they would send a couple sharks to the springs?
Thank God, no. They did not send the sharks back with us. No.
Thank goodness for that. Kristy, thank you so much for joining us today on the Elmore Leonard podcast. And when you have time, when you're not getting your face molded for another statue, check out Maximum Bob. I think you'll get a real kick out of it.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. And thank you for having me.
And now, Mr. Bill Leonard. Bill,
Yes.
thank you again for joining us here on the Elmore Leonard podcast. This is very exciting for us to get to talk to somebody who knew him as well as you. Elmore he was referred to by some as the Dickens of Detroit. And so Detroit is obviously near and dear to him. It's where he lived, it's where you grew up, but also there's a lot of Florida books. You, as a family, did spend some time down there. My understanding is you started spending time in Florida as a family after your dad bought a motel for your grandma. Is that how it went down, or is that just legend at this point?
No, that's exactly how it went down. He bought the Coconut Palms Motel. It sounds fancy, doesn't it?
Sounds great.
Yeah, well, it was a single-story building with maybe 2 or 3 efficiencies available. It was a long, low building. First was the office, which was Noni's apartment, and then 2 or 3, I don't remember, after that to the right. And we filled up the whole thing every time we went.
Noni was your grandma.
That's correct. Noni, Flora Leonard.
So first off, how old were you when you heard this was happening? Did it sound like a good idea, or did it sound like a crazy, like, what are we doing, buying a motel for grandma?
I was too young to question anything that my parents did.
Fair enough.
It seemed okay. I did think, how can this cute little frail woman be alone managing this and having strangers knock or ring the doorbell in the middle of the night to rent a room? But I didn't question it because it was happening, so she must have been capable, and that impressed me.
Was she? Tell me about that.
I guess she was. I mean, she was this very sweet woman with a New Orleans accent, and we always poked fun at it. She called it choich, not church, and she was dressed up every day. She had a dress and heels and pearls on every day. And she just seemed like she had it together.
People knew, they saw the pearls, they saw the heels, they knew to behave themselves when they
Yeah.
walked into the lobby of the
I think
Coconut
so.
Palms.
Yep.
Did she like it when you guys came down and took over the whole place, or was she annoyed because it cost her some business? She, cost her customers.
Well, again, I wouldn't know because I'm just a kid staying there for Easter vacation. But she never, ever would act like it was a problem. She
Right.
was never anything but completely pleasant and seemed so proud of my father. Except, why do you have to use those swear words? That always was a problem for her. The language.
Did it come up often?
Yeah, I'd say it came up once a visit.
Once
which
a
means
visit?
once a year.
And was it because he had let slip some colorful language, or she just casually mentioned, "Oh, I read your new book," and
Yeah, it would be that. It would be the latter, because my father never swore in conversation, never. Well,
never?
well, hell damn shit. I never heard him say the F word
Interesting.
in
Interesting.
regular conversation, of course.
What did he say to Noni when she brought
He
it up?
would apologize, and I feel like he did feel bad. I know it bothered him that it bothered her, but not enough to stop or change.
Fair enough. Did your aunt also work there?
She didn't work there, as far
Okay.
as I knew. She just freeloaded there because there was a room around the corner in the back.
Okay.
I think it was just a bedroom, it didn't have the kitchenette that the other rooms had. She had a bed and a baby grand piano, if you can imagine, in her room. It was so close to her bed that it almost touched her bed. Maybe it did touch.
Well, if you have a baby grand piano, you don't need a kitchen. So,
Right. Or an end table or anything else, because that's all
right.
she had, a bed and a piano. And they bickered a lot.
In a fun way, or did your dad get some of his character's language from your aunt?
Well, who knows? I'm sure he absorbs anything he's hearing. It always seemed, I don't know if it always seemed pleasant. I think they kind of jabbed at each other.
So, about how old were you when you started going down? And you guys would just sort of drive down for Easter?
Yes, we drove down. Gosh, I don't know. When I think back in pictures, I was probably 10, but I bet we went before that, even maybe 6. Yeah, and we drove every year, and my dad was like Clark Griswold on vacation. He was just a dad. We
Right.
drove. You didn't stop to eat. You didn't stop to pee. He has pee in a mayonnaise jar because getting good time was what it was all about.
It's a big deal. Yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta.
you got to make time.
Well, you're on vacation. You only have so much time. So, do you want to spend it in
Exactly.
Florida or at some gas station?
Right. Or the McDonald's, no way.
And then, just so I have a clear sense of it, Pompano Beach is that in Miami? Is that next to
No,
Miami?
it's just north of Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, and
So it's north of both Miami and Fort Lauderdale, just north.
got it. But Fort Lauderdale is just on top of Miami, so
Yep.
30
So
minutes
not
from
far.
Miami.
Yeah. Maybe an hour. I don't know. We didn't go to Miami.
Right, got it. You guys would go take over the place, take over the pool, maybe do a
No, no,
little.
no. No pool.
No pool.
Oh gosh, no. No, nothing.
So what did you do
I don't
on
I don't know. I don't know what the hell we did or why it was fun. I just know that soon after we didn't stay at the Coconut Palms Motel, and we stayed at the fun hotel, the Vista Del Mar, where
Oh.
all our friends and all their kids stayed. So Coconut Palms was just early life in Florida.
How did Noni feel about you guys not staying at the Coconut Palms?
Probably quite relieved. I don't know. She didn't. I didn't know stuff. I wasn't privy to things like that. All she was nice all the time.
Did she come join you at the Vista Del Mar, or
Oh gosh, no.
no? She
No.
stayed away from that. She
Vista
stayed.
Del Mar was a completely different atmosphere. All the families drinking cocktails all day. Not the kids, of course, but the parents. And that's where I got a good sense that my father was different from the others. That he'd have a cool Panama hat, or he'd wear an ascot occasionally, that he'd stop to write while people were sitting around the pool.
Oh
That
yeah.
always felt very cool to me.
What would he just sort of would he say? Excuse me, folks, I'm gonna go right, or he would just like get up and go, and you'd see
Yeah,
him, notice him in a corner with a
I'm
pad.
sure he wouldn't make an announcement because that would be drawing attention to yourself.
Yeah.
He would be discreet and just go right. He was probably still listening, to get all this good suburban couples talking.
And so this was sort of your growing up, like your
Yeah.
annual vacation, your annual trip, or did you guys do a lot
That's
of
right.
traveling?
No. This was pretty much it. Of course, we did go to Spain when I was 6. My father pulled us all out of school for 3 weeks, which is unheard of today.
Wow.
Yeah, everyone but Katie, she wasn't born yet. We went to Madrid and maybe Barcelona, 3 weeks, like I said, and apparently this was to research his short films he was writing, educational films he was writing for Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh wow.
I didn't know any of that at the time. I just knew I was in Spain with my family. and it was so much fun.
That's fantastic.
My eyes were wide open to everything, and I thought it was incredible. He took us to bullfights.
Oh, really?
Yes. I was, 6, and
Yeah.
I thought it was incredibly cruel and scary because there was a lot of blood.
Yeah. No, they are brutal.
Yeah.
I would not want to be on either side.
Yeah.
So you're taking 3 weeks off of school, but you were sick, so it wasn't like you had a ton of homework or
Right.
anything like that. Okay, so
And I bought a little wooden statue, probably a Mary or a Jesus, to bring back to my teacher, who was a nun, just to help ease the pain that I was, my arrogance of being gone 3 weeks.
yes. Did she forgive you relatively quickly,
Yes.
or
Yes.
you mentioned in Florida he would write? Did he write every day? Did he kind of keep to his famous routine, or was it a little bit
Well,
more relaxed for him?
I'd say it was much more relaxed, and he didn't write in the morning like he did early on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if it was every day. I just distinctly remember him sitting aside from people, kind of still in the area, but just off on his own
Right.
with his pad and pen.
There's several books set in Florida, either completely or partially. Cat Chaser, is actually sort of set in a little motel, or the main character runs a little motel. There's also La Brava and Maximum Bob, and Out of Sight starts in Florida and goes to Detroit. Same with Split Images. So there's all these books. Is there a particular Florida book of your dad's that really felt like came from some of your trips or some of your travels? Or
Well, not really, because we didn't see anything so colorful as that he wrote about. We
Right.
only saw nice rich people from the north
yeah, from the
coming
north.
down to vacation.
Yeah, got it. Well, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Do you think there was something specific about Florida that really got him excited as a writer?
Well, definitely. I mean, obviously, since he wrote about it so much,
Yeah.
because that's where low lifes go, or people trying to make it, and not necessarily in a legitimate way. But none of that was apparent to me when we were vacationing.
Sure.
Only when I read, his books and read his accounts of Florida, a completely different Florida that I knew nothing about. And frankly, I would always wonder, how the hell do you know this? How do you know? That's probably the biggest mystery for me about my father. How does a mild-mannered suburbanite know so much about the underworld and the crime world? I guess that was always an intriguing question for fans and critics.
So it was only a few years at the Coconut Palms, and then you go to the Vista Del Mar.
Yeah.
And how long were these sort of the annual trip? Was it till you guys all got older? And
I remember it up through pretty much through high school. My parents separated when I was a junior in high school, so
Okay.
we couldn't have gone past that.
right.
So yeah, and then there's chapter 3 of Florida, and that's his condo in North Palm Beach. I remember going there without him more than I remember going with him.
Okay.
But it was a completely different atmosphere because it was a very slick condo on the intercoastal that a designer had created with an all-white living room, white carpet, white couches. Didn't really look like my father at all, but it sure looked like the kinds of settings you would read about in his books. It was 80s, and it looked very 80s.
Yeah. It sounds a white carpet it's
Yeah.
always a little stressful.
Well, sure. Especially in later years when I'd go there and bring my children and was afraid for them to go in any room.
I had a friend of mine whose brother was a very sort of flashy guy and was always having people over, and he always was giving people overly generous gifts. It was just kind of crazy. Turns out he was doing a mail fraud scam.
Oh.
And he couldn't deposit the cash. People were sending him cash through the mail, and he couldn't deposit it, or it would eventually get tracked and traced and taxed and all that stuff, and you have to explain where it came from. And so he was just spending money like crazy. And one of the things he had in his garage white carpet.
In his garage.
In his garage, and would swap out the carpet every, like, I don't know, maybe it was once a, it was more than, it felt like it was once a month. It was probably maybe every 2 months or something like that. I mean,
Wow.
it was just a crazy thing. He ended up going to, it was a whole thing. But whenever I hear white carpet, I get nervous.
Yeah, I bet.
No mail fraud in this case.
No.
One of the books that comes up pretty often, and we had a really fun discussion with an author named Megan Abbott about La Brava. One of my favorite Elmore books. There's a lot of reasons why, but I think that you do have, like you were saying, there is this sense of people going there to sort of seek their fortune, seek their, find good luck, but maybe not in the most upstanding ways.
Sure.
And I always think of that as sort of like the classic, like 80s Miami. You have Art Deco. You have
Right.
there's a lot of retirees hanging out, getting suntans, and I think that Miami is gone. I'm glad it was there when he observed it, because I don't think you could write a book like La Brava now based on what Miami is now. But
I think all those things you just described are, of course, what attracted him to Florida. The contrast between the retirees and the, shifty people, and what happens when they clash. That's where the fun is.
so, and some of the retirees are shifty themselves.
Exactly.
The Elmore Leonard podcast is produced and edited by Judd Rubin. Music by Greg Ahee. Hosted by Judd Rubin and Alex Leonard. Executive produced by Peter Leonard. Copyright 2025, Elmore Leonard Inc. Please visit us at elmoreleonardofficial.com or send us an email at hello@theelmoreleonardpodcast.com.